The Wrong Place at the Right Time by Little Jackie Papercut. Episode 1 of the Manehattan verse. Presented by Little Jackie Papercut. Act 2. The Elements of Harmony. Twilight stood paralyzed with fear, the true direness of the situation having just set in upon her. She was vaguely aware of Honeydew creeping up the stage and toward the door, and nearby, Blossoforth standing protectively in front of a group of cowering foals. "Halt!" Mayor Tux cried out, pointing a hoof at the villain, as the combined forces of the Royal Guard and the New York Police Department converged on her. "You will tell us where our princess is now." "Stand back, you foes!" In an instant, Nightmare Moon conjured a storm that blew away the guards and pinned down the police. At that moment, Honeydew returned, slipping toward the stage with a sun-shaped symbol clenched between her teeth. Whatever she was expecting the object to do, though, it never got a chance to do it. Nightmare Moon swatted the courier away each side easily. Then, as suddenly as she arrived, she became a dark mist once more and slammed away. Octavia turned toward Twilight, looking like she might comment. She stopped herself, however, when she realized Twilight wasn't there anymore. "We gotta stop Nightmare!" Spike declared, raising a claw in the direction of the door before he toppled over, the day's exhaustion catching up with him. Twilight shook her head as she set him on a couch and draped a blanket over him. "You've been up all night, Spike," she said gently. "You are a baby dragon, after all." Now she turned to the nearest bookshelf. "Elements, elements, elements. How can we stop Nightmare Moon without the elements of harmony?" "You!" Twilight jumped nearly a foot in the air behind her. When she turned around, she found an angry blue unicorn bearing down on her. "You in Manehattan, on the day Nightmare Moon takes over, and you knew she was coming? What kind of fools do you think we are?" Trixie spat. Twilight reeled back, a little too stunned to catch the implication Trixie was making. "I don't understand." Sunpony was standing in the doorway, cleared her throat politely. Twilight and Trixie both turned to look. Octavia offered a smile as she knocked on the doorframe, trotting inside. Blossoforth and Orange Sherbet followed, supporting between them a recovering Honeydew. "Twilight, please do go on," Sherbet said, nodding to the unicorn. "If you know how we can solve this, share it with us." Twilight looked around the group, then bowed her head before answering. "I read all about the prediction of Nightmare Moon," she explained. "Some mysterious objects called the Elements of Harmony are the only thing that could stop her. But I don't know where they are, where to find them. I don't even know what they do." As if the words triggered something, Honeydew suddenly perked up and darted to a bookshelf, scanning it quickly and selecting one particular tome. "Elements of Harmony. Reference guide," she declared, lifting herself out of the way as Twilight rushed to see. "How did you find that?" Twilight asked, pulling it hastily from the shelf and opening it. "Study it for months. I could find one blindfolded," Honey replied. "Part of the prep work, you know. I'd skip it if I could, but then—" Twilight barely heard her, focusing on the book. "There are 6 of the Elements of Harmony, but only 5 are known. Kindness, laughter, generosity, honesty, and loyalty. The 6th is a complete mystery. It is said the last known location of the 5 elements was in the castle of the Royal Sisters. It is located in what is now the Everfree Forest?" She looked up, eyes wide. "But that's halfway across Equestria. We'll never make it, not with—" Whoa! Take it easy," Honey said, placing a hoof on Twilight's shoulder. "We don't need to go there." The look Twilight gave her was the look one might have had given a 3-headed Edson with a monocle, top hat, and generally mustache. "Don't need to— Weren't you listening? The elements are the only thing that can defeat Nightmare Moon. There is nothing else!" Honey held up her forehoofs in a defensive gesture, fluttering away. "No, listen," she said. "We don't need to go there, because the elements aren't in the Everfree Forest." There was a pregnant pause at that, during which the assembled ponies almost thought they heard gears in Twilight's head grinding to a halt. "But how would you know that?" she asked quietly. "Because for the last 6 months they've been in the Equestrian Museum of Supernatural History?" Twilight gaped at the building. They had been right there the whole time. She could have just asked for them. Her hoof met her face for a moment, but then she brightened. Easy! Just walk in and take the elements. Use them against Nightmare Moon. Then this whole ordeal would be over. Okay then, Madam Creator, she said, starting toward the door. Show me the way to the elements and... She was cut off by a low, rumbling sound. Quickly, she became aware that the ground under her hooves was vibrating, and so was the museum. With a deafening roar, the building began to sink, inch by inch, into the earth. My museum! Honeydew wailed, watching in horror as the first floor was silly, completely submerged beneath street level. Then, to seal the deal, everything above simply collapsed, creating a mountain of rubble where the museum had stood. The pony stared on in disbelief. Twilight and Honey both gaped at the loss of their only hope of bringing back the sun, plus 1,000 years of supernatural history. Bossiflor averted her eyes as Octavia patted Honeydew with a gentle, comforting hoof. Auntie scanned the wreckage, reaching out with her hoof as to feel around for something, but not leaving her spot. And Trixie seemed about to speak, but repeatedly faltered and said nothing. Is there still a way in? Twilight asked at length, approaching the ruins cautiously, looking for any gap in the debris. A window! Or a door! She spotted a metal door, surrounded by a column of concrete, poking out the detritus, rushed over to it, and gave it a pull. Nothing. It was the remnant of a fire escape. The metal grating that used to connect it to the ground now stripped away and lying useless. The door automatically locked inside for security purposes. Twilight gave a strangled cry and beat her head against the metal. Why? Why did it have to be a lock? Now we got no way to get in! Well, that's not entirely true, said Auntie. Twilight turned slowly, hardly daring to hope. Please, take a look over there, said the Earth Pony, gesturing beyond the field of destruction. Obligingly, Twilight turned her head in the indicated direction, and there she saw something wonderful. Green rails surrounded what appeared to be a great hole in the road, and from this angle, she could barely make out the outline of stairs leading down. It was a subway entrance. From the look of it, said Auntie, the building sinking should have put its back door in the subway station. Perfect! Twilight yelled, rushing down the stairs without a moment of hesitation. All 5 of the others exchanged a glance, then hurried after her. Twilight was only familiar with subway stations for descriptions in her books. The lights flickering on as they entered, the only ones who would tonight startle her, but not enough to stop her. The slate tile floor beneath her hardly registered, nor the faint lingering smell of hay fries. Even the fossils embedded in the wall and the beautiful mosaics, which normally would have sparked her curiosity, didn't slow her down. What did get her attention was the sound of screeching brakes, and she came to a complete stop as a subway train barreled past, suddenly wrenching itself off the tracks, twisting and crashing with a massive explosion. When the smoke cleared, Twilight was once again at a loss. The wreckage stood from floor to ceiling, completely blocking their way into the museum. There were gasps, yes, but they were twisted, narrow, jagged, and had flames pouring from them. Was anybody on board? Bossiflor asked, alarmed. No, it was totally empty, Trixie replied. Trixie didn't even see an operator. No, Twilight groaned. We were so close! The elements were right there! Tell me there's another way, she said, turning to the others. Tell me there's something we can do to get rid of this! Auntie shifted uncomfortably. Well, there's a lever that will trigger an emergency system designed to clear large blockages from the tracks, yes, she said, but it's on the other side. No opponent could get through this. A moment of silence passed before Honeydew stepped forward. I could, she said calmly. You? Twilight looked at her skeptically. How would you even fit? Yeah. I've been through tire squeezes, Honey replied. She reached out and touched the nearest opening, then quickly retrieved her hoof and examined it. Pointier ones, too. She stepped back and prepared to go in, but looked over herself. I'm going to have to lose this, though, she said, slipping a hoof under her sweater. No way I'll make it with this fire hazard on my back. She pulled it off and tossed it aside. As the sweater cleared Honey's flanks, Twilight gasped. Honeydew's cutie mark, previously covered by the hefty garment, was a compass rose, with that revealed, and her body no longer artificially puffed up by the wooden bulk. A spark of recognition fired in Twilight's mind. "You're—" she began, but the Pegasus raised the hook for silence. "Talk later," she said, charging forward and diving through the opening. The Pegasus rolled into the subway car, already feeling the intense heat as she stood. It wasn't much more recognizable on the inside than it had been from the outside. It still looked as if it had been pinched in half, and the floor clearly corkscrewed. The doors were completely trashed. Her entrance had been the remnant of one door, broken slightly ajar, but the opposite door was twisted shut permanently. Glancing up, she spotted a hatch in the ceiling. She dropped near the ground and drew in a breath of relatively clean air to hold against the smoke that flew up and gave the hatch a good turn. It slid aside, revealing that it was Honeydew's lucky day. Another hatch! This, too, she pulled aside, then flew straight up through it. She was now in an upside-down subway car, and the fire was closer to her than it previously had been. But there, within sight, was an open door, leading to her destination. A creaking above her drew her attention. She looked at the floor, as she realized in that moment that she was going to be hit with molten slag. She grabbed a chunk of wood that had been previously part of a bench and used it to seal herself. The rest watched in silence, only hearing clangs of hooves on metal. Twilight held her breath as an especially loud sizzling sound came from the car. Slowly, that sound faded. The five strained to listen, anxious for any hint of their friend's safety. They heard only the cracking and popping of a slowly burning fire. Twilight bit her lip nervously and turned to the others. She wanted to say something, anything, but words wouldn't come. As she struggled to organize her thoughts, there was a clicking sound from below the train. A great groaning and whining issued from the mass of metal, and shower of sparks had began to move. The wreckage was pulled away from the track, revealing Honeydew watching from the other side. The five practically flew across the track to meet her. "You made it! I didn't think you'd get out there alive!" "Honey, are you really?" Lieutenant Pegasus nodded. "Yeah, they call me Daring Do," she said, managing not to show any major change in her expression as she did. "So," Twilight ventured, "why hide it? Covering up your cutie mark, calling yourself Honey." "Obviously," Trixie interrupted, placing her forehoofs on Honey's shoulders. "It's because she wants to escape the terrible burden of fame. Trixie sympathizes, really." No," said Honey. "It's actually kind of nice being famous. But have you read those books?" "Sir, the artifacts they talk about are real, but beyond that, they have no basis in reality. I'm not some brass, loudmouth hero like the books portray me, but even my old friends start to think I'm like the character after they read the books. So, I just don't tell ponies, and it's all good. Besides, it's not like I like the pony. Honey's my real name, even if Daring Do is really catchy." There was a second as they absorbed this, Honey being the first to turn her attention back to the great door before them. "Girls, we still got a mission," she reminded them. "Whenever you're ready." There was a stereo chorus of "Ready!" They all proceeded down the massive door. Twilight hung back a bit, nudging the Pegasus as the other four opened the door. "Hey," she said. "Really, thanks for letting us know, Honey." Honey shook her head. "It wouldn't be right to put my own little secrets ahead of everyone else. The truth will set you free, right? But anyway, you guys, you could call me Daring." The door led to a room lined with couches. Octavia set her settled down on one to rest for a moment. The room wasn't as large as Twilight was expecting, and the presence strengthened by the fact that the far wall was rounded, extending back into the room. There was a ticket booth in the center of that wall, with several doors on either side. A light flickered within the booth, threatening to go out. "This is the planetarium. The doors are automatic," Daring said. "Need a ticket to get in this way." Twilight approached the booth, peering around for a way in. The sudden motion inside startled her, as she jumped back and fit as a face sprang up on the other side of the glass. "Trixie?" Twilight asked. "What did you—" "Trixie used to hang out here over the summer when she was in school," Trixie explained. "Getting in and out of places unseen was one way Trixie amused herself." She flicked her mane with a hoof as he leaned against the machine with a clock on it, which showed that the next ill-fated show was supposed to be in 2 hours. Twilight opted not to ask what the other ways were. "So, you can let us in, right?" Said Trixie, reviewing a chart. "It would seem admission has gone up since Trixie was last here. 10 bits for a ticket? Truly outrageous! Trixie supposes you will have to charge you 30 to 60 bits, though policy is policy. Wouldn't want Trixie to get fired from her new job, would you?" "Trixie, just give us the tickets already!" Trixie snickered as he pressed a button, and several tickets were dispensed for the slot. "Relax, Trixie has you covered," she said, taking one for herself, then distributing the rest. "Lucky us, these were the last of them." With a puff of smoke, Trixie disappeared from the booth, rejoining the group in the same fashion. Tickets ready, they approached the doors. "No matter what the universe, I love you, Trixie. Just saying, you are awesome." Out of their direct line of sight, the clock's spark flickered and went dark, wisps of shadow beginning to leak from it. The doors had slots on them, too, and it was into these that the tickets were inserted, granting each pony entry. Twilight struggled to see in the dim, flittering light of the planetarium. Scanning the far end of the room, she spotted what might have been the doors leading into the museum proper, and started forward, accompanied by the others. Behind them, the door swung shut. The sudden pitch blackness of the dome elicited screams and shouts of confusion from the group. Okay, no pony panic," Twilight said a little belatedly. "I can use a quick light spell. We should be fine." The glowing of her horn quickly illuminated the dome. Just as quickly, the ponies dropped to the ground, screaming, covering their heads to the hooves. Above them, indistinct, phantasmal shapes could be seen swirling about, now and then resolving themselves into extremely large bats, with dark reddish fur covering their bodies, and sharp, exaggerated faces reminiscent of foxes. Blossom Force swatted at the air above her, blindly. Octavia shielded herself with her cello. Orange Server tried to take cover under a seat. Derry simply tensed up and watched, clutching at the sides of her head as if to hold on to her missing pith helmet. Trixie was standing. "Trixie, what are you doing?" Twilight shouted. Shadowy claws slashed at the blue unicorn, leaving deep gashes. She seemed wholly unperturbed, though, until Twilight jumped to her feet to pull her back. It got raked across the eye by the creature. "Ah!" Twilight stumbled back, wincing. By way of response, Trixie laughed. It was a loud, long, confident sound, which startled the others almost as much as the creatures had. A moment later, Trixie conjured an eye patch over Twilight's eye and gestured to the creatures. "We have an audience. Perfect! Welcome to the greatest show in Equestria!" she shouted, launching a single firework from her horn. With angry screeches, they began to swirl around her. But Trixie reached up with a hoof and grabbed one, pulling it to her side. "Tell Trixie, what's your name? Where do you come from?" the creature hissed. "Oh, that's a fine place. Sunny weather. Trixie likes you. Have a cigar." She shoved a cigar in the creature's mouth and released it, leaving it looking confused as it hovered over her. A few moments later, the cigar exploded in its face, leaving a stunned-looking flying fox covered in Sue and Nash. Daring Do chuckled. "How about you?" From under Trixie's cape, a cane extended, grabbing and reeling in another creature, still clothed in shell. "You know, hold that thought. I don't really think that color works for you." Her horn sparked, and suddenly the shadow had become a roar of neon pink. There was a general chorus of uncertain giggles from the mare, still on the floor. Poof! Another creature was now wearing a funny hat. Zap! Now that one over there looked like it had been dunked in a swamp. Ping! Zoop! 3 of them now found themselves inexplicably seated around a floating table, with teacups in front of them. Cerbert stifled a laugh in order to remark, "Oh, never thought that bats would be so erudite." "Oh, certainly," Trixie replied. "They're positively dripping with class." As he said this, 3 tin pots appeared above the bats and tilted, pouring their contents onto the hapless bats. They have to be, of course, she continued. They could never have such a smashing time otherwise. The teapots proceeded to break themselves over the creatures' heads. The mares now erupted into peals of laughter. Even Twilight, once she had recovered from her shock, the beasts reeled in confusion, bumping into each other as they scrambled to regroup, almost as frightened by the laughing ponies as the ponies themselves had been moments before. One by one, they had found cracks in the dome and began to slip out. Trixie turned to the others with a grin. Well, that takes care of that, she said, tossing her mane. They won't be bothering us again. Twilight nodded as her giggles subsided, then took a deep breath and went to Trixie's side. Trixie, she began, your wounds, they're gone. Illusions, Trixie said. Flying foxes use illusions to hunt. They only strike for real when their victim is too paralyzed with fear to fight back, she smirked. They're as afraid of you as you aren't of them. Twilight observed that for a moment. Slowly, she lifted a hoof to her face. Then, my eye? Your eye was all in your head. Ha 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 ha! Trixie confirmed with a laugh. Then, why did I need an eye patch? Twilight asked. Waving a hoof, Trixie sniggered. Because it's funny, she explained, as if it were perfectly obvious. Twilight groaned, removing the eye patch and discarding it as the others giggled once more. The doors at the far end of the room swung open, as if beckoning them deeper into the museum. Shall we? Trixie asked. Hooray! Twilight considered Trixie for a moment. Then, Polly gave her an approving grin and a nod. Let's go. Outside the planetarium, the lights were dim and flickering, but there was at least enough light to see by without magic. Twilight entered first, cautiously, Daring Do hovering over her as they made their way forward. Behind them, Trixie was still making little jokes to Auntie Sherbert about her victory over the flying foxes. In the rear, Fossilforth was talking to, or possibly at, Octavia, who nodded politely along with everything the Pegasus said. Above them, a mass of darkness creaked along the ceiling, unnoticed. I guess we should have known it was dangerous from the start, Fossilforth was saying. It's not like some big nasty who took down Celestia was going to make it easy on us. Still, we can get through this, right? I mean, we've got to. I mean, we will. We'll bring back the sun, right? Her teary expression wavered for a moment before reaffirming itself. Right. We've got nothing to fear. Did you see how Daring Do handled that train wreck? Or how Trixie chased off those bats easily? If they could do that, nothing could stop us. All those words seemed hollow to her. Octavia reached over with a hoof and patted on her on the shoulder, offering a gentle smile. Fossilforth chuckled. Thanks, Octavia. You always know what to say, don't you? Girls, Twilight whispered as they walked through the Commander Hurricane Memorial exhibit. Did you hear that? Every pony went silent. Fossilforth fluttered forward, listening carefully. Above them, something was definitely creaking. Sherbert grimaced. It sounds like it's about to... She was cut off by a horrendous crashing noise as a column of stone and metal from the ruins of the upper floors crashed down into the room. Daring Do pulled Twilight to the side, while Fossilforth zipped forward to avoid being flattened. Trixie and Auntie Sherbert were close behind, their course weaving throughout the room as they dodged chunks of death from above. Octavia, hurried back, hurried to reach the wall, allowing it to falling across a hazardous zone. A cloud of dust billowed into the Mammals of Dream Valley exhibit, carrying with it several ponies. After a few seconds of coughing, the dust began to settle, and Twilight brushed herself off. Is every pony okay? She asked. Fine and dandy, said Daring Do, patting herself down to check. A little rough though, but I'll like it. Sherbert nodded. Still great and powerful, Trixie said, beaming. I think I'm in one piece, Fossilforth confirmed. Good. Twilight sighed. What about you, Octavia? Silence. Octavia? Sorry. Didn't like it? Sherbert cried, horrified, and turning back to the now sealed-off door. A panicked murmur spread quickly among the group. I think I saw her running around the cave-in, Daring Do stammered. She must have reached the biology of giant invertebrates exhibit. Twilight nodded, her mind clicking into gear. She stepped toward the records. Octavia! She called out. Can you hear me? I can't see a way through! We're going on ahead! So try to meet us at the main entrance! Octavia stood, shook her head to clear it, and then gasped and scrambled back slightly, as he found herself staring at a very large, circular maw full of pointy teeth. A moment passed, as he realized it was a display that had been knocked over, a variety of sandworm. She had picked up her fallen cello, and picked up gingerly over it, scanning the room. There was a door, barely visible in the darkness, at the far end. She spared a glance behind her, confirming that there was no way but forward. Twilight and the rest must have been trapped in another part of the museum. Octavia had been at the back of the group when the cave-in started, so the others would have more time to escape. With that settled in her mind, she moved forward slowly. The sound of something clattering through the floor drew her attention, as he whirled to face her source. Twilight eased forward, past various displays of strange-looking animals. Her wary eyes scrolled over a group of puffy, hairy creatures, identified on the place card as a bush woolly, an extremely docile species of subsapient rodents, and across from them, some lumpy, gray-skinned bipeds called grundles. No recent sightings, the place card noted, thought extinct. In the dark recesses of the exhibit, she was unable to see an even darker mist seeping into a large stuffed display shrouded in the shadows ahead. A roar brought the entire group to a halt. It was quickly echoed by a second. A snort followed, and every pony backed away from the creature and slowly stepped out from between the pair of overlarge monkey bird shapes. It sniffed the air for a moment before noticing them, then turned and padded forward toward them, its lion and dragon heads licking their lips in anticipation, the goat tossing irritably. Twilight's jaw unhinged for a moment, but she quickly recomposed herself. "Girls, looks like we've got a fight on our hooves," she said. Octavia approached the giant centipede cautiously. As he routed it, several ponies gasped in unison and held up their hooves defenseless. "Please, don't hurt us," said a cream-colored earth stallion. "We got trapped in here after Nightmare Moon wrecked the place. We're just looking for an exit." Octavia nodded and reached out to them with a hoof, beckoned them closer. They began to gather around them, and she looked them over to see if any of them were hurt. One mare, a blue Pegasus, laid on the ground and nursed a slightly reddened foreleg. Octavia offered a hoof to help her stand. That was when some pony behind her yelled something she couldn't quite make out. Before she could turn around, she felt a sharp pain in her hind leg. The 5 mares gathered around, braying themselves as the chimera stepped closer. The dragon head gave an angry snort, a wisp of flame escaping its nostrils. Behind the chimera, something green and scaly rose up. A snake, where the creature's tail should be. Despite her instinctual fear, Twilight's eyes narrowed, giving the creature a glance of determination. The chimera returned to Chester, all 8 eyes fixed towards the group, as the group braced themselves for the attack. "Twilight, Trixie, can you do something about this?" Silver asked. Derry-Doo shook her head. "Chimeras are part dragon, and adult dragons are extremely magic resistant. All we can use is hoof power, and this thing has us beat 4 ways there." "We can't beat it head on, no," Twilight said. "We have to trick it. In fact, I have a plan, but it's too close. We need to distract it somehow." Bossivore took a deep breath. "And your plan will work if it's distracted?" she asked. "Well, yeah, but it's got us where it wants us, so I don't know how we're going to—" Before Twilight could say any more, a white streak darted past her and over the chimera's head. The beast looked confused for a second, then nearly tripped over itself, turning to chase the pony. Octavia glanced behind herself and saw a young Pegasus colt, almost the same shade of blue as the mare in front of her, rearing up to strike her again. "Don't touch my mom!" he shouted. The huddled ponies looked shocked at this, but Octavia didn't wait for them to act. With the fastest reflexes she had ever displayed, she turned and grabbed him firmly with her forehoofs. She held him there in a gentle hug. He struggled and squirmed for a minute, so she whispered soft assurances in his ear. Slowly, he began to calm down. Slowly, Octavia swept him up and set him in front of his mother, raised her cello. The bow touched strings again as he began to play a slow, familiar melody. The foal smiled as he began to sing. "Hush now, quiet
now, time to lay your sleepy head. Hush now, quiet now, it's time to go to bed. Drift, drift off to sleep, leave the exciting day behind you. Drift, drift off to sleep, let the joy of dreamland find you. Hush now, quiet now, it's time to lay your sleepy head. Hush now, quiet now, it's time to go to bed.
Vibrating slightly, the colt yawned, and the mother clapped lightly, careful not to disturb him. Octavia smiled at the sound, but she wasn't done. She bowed to her mother and turned to face the rest of the ponies, and played on.
See now how the world is peaceful, quiet bliss. See now how the world has felt sleep's gentle kiss. Dream, dream, dream of what the morning's magic light will bring. Dream, dream, dream of all of nature's wondrous things. Hush now, quiet now, it's time to lay your sleepy head. Hush now, quiet now, it's time to go to bed. Hush now, quiet now, it's time to lay your sleepy head. Hush now, quiet now, it's time to go to bed. Drift, drift off to sleep, leave the exciting day behind you. Drift, drift off to sleep, let the joy of dreamland find you. Hush now, quiet now, it's time to lay your sleepy head. Hush now, quiet now, it's time to go to bed.
The lion's jaws shut and snapped shut, inches from Blossomforth's heel. Blossomforth rolled away as best she could, and received a smack from the ghost's horns that sent her spiraling out of control into a nearby display of monkeys. No! Not the Gizmonks! Derry-Doo cried out. It's the only pair we have! Blossomforth stood and shook off the impact, then darted into the air again. The Chimera's beady eyes watched her hungrily. Hovering out of its reach, she waved to Twilight. She was surprised when the dragon head opened its mouth and a stream of fire issued forth. There was barely enough time to dive out of the way and avoid being scorched. The air wasn't safe. Blossomforth was just going to have to get closer. With a deep breath, she zipped directly between the dragon and lion heads. Each turned to try to bite her, but just missed. They roared in pain as their teeth dug into each other. The snake tail twitched, then sprang at Blossomforth. She gave it a kick, and it reeled away momentarily. When it recovered and came at her again, she ducked under it, then turned around. The desperate snake managed to twist itself into a knot trying to catch the Pegasus.
Any time now, Twilight!
Blossomforth called. The Chimera was fast, faster than any pony could hope to be in this tight space. She knew it wouldn't be long before it actually caught her, that only determination and luck could pull her through. Despite that, she remained defiant. She flew out of its reach once more, giving the hind leg a quick rap on the way. Twilight braced herself, mustering all her magic, as the Chimera jumped to catch Blossomforth. A diagram depicting the ecosystem of Drake Valley swayed once or twice, then toppled on top of it, twisting itself to trap the creature.
Now what do we do with it?
Twilight asked, approaching the downed beast.
It's just an exhibit, a display,
Derry-Doo said.
It was never alive before. Must be one of Nightmare Moon's tricks. Can you reverse the spell?
Twilight nodded.
The come to life spell is pretty simple. I should be able to undo it.
She focused her magic onto the task, and within seconds, the vicious look in the Chimera's eyes gave way to the foggy, unknowing stare of simple glass beads. Blossomforth landed.
Well, that was easier than I thought it would be,
she remarked, poking at the display. Blossomforth! Twilight gave a sigh of relief and hugged the Pegasus. I thought that thing was going to catch you for sure!
That was one of the riskiest moves I've ever seen. Well,
Blossomforth replied to her, shrugged.
You said you could do something if I was distracted. I just believed in you. Now, I think we were going to meet Octavia.
Octavia gently patted the sleeping foal's head. She looked around at the others, and saw all of them had visibly relaxed. The stallion who had first encountered her stepped forward and placed a hoof on her shoulder. Octavia smiled, then turned and beckoned for them to follow her. The path took them through the Shimmerwood Forest exhibit. The trees here, all taken from magical groves within the historic forest, or known to love music. Octavia began to hum, and the trees glittered with a beautiful light. The path was made clear. The rescuees followed closely, still awed by Octavia's song. None of them spoke until they reached the end of the path, just beyond the trees. A metal door was visible. Octavia walked slowly to it and pushed it open. On the other side was another door, warped shut, and a flight of stairs. This was the first floor fire exit. Glancing up, Octavia saw the stairwell was mostly intact, a valid escape route. She motioned them forward.
If we do meet again, we'll smile indeed. If not, 'tis true this pairing was well made,
she said with a bow.
Hurry home. Be safe. I still have something to do with you. Thank you so much,
said the Mother Pegasus. I'll repay you somehow, I promise! With that, she disappeared up the stairs, and one by one the rest followed after her, all pausing to give Octavia a grateful nod on their way out. The last escaped, and Octavia let the door swing shut, and returned her attention to the path. She hummed again, a different tune, and the new path lit up. She walked with a purposeful stride and quick pace. Her friends would be waiting for her. It would be wrong to make them wait. Therefore, nothing must delay her. Ahead lay the shamanic rituals of the buffalo exhibit, and the idea Nightmare Moon might have laid a trap briefly occurred to her, but she closed her eyes and pressed on. She was fortunate. It seemed Nightmare Moon had better things to do than lay traps for troubadours, and as the main entrance came into view, she could see the others waiting. Trixie was waving animatedly, daring assure it more reservedly, and Twilight Blossomforth just smiled at her.
You made it! What a relief, Twilight said, putting her hoof to her chest. What happened in there? Did you run into anything?
Octavia thought for a moment, then cleared her throat to recount what just had happened.
And just up ahead,
Daring Do announced, indicating the same corridor she had led Twilight down earlier that day, is the early equestrian relics ring, where we'll find displays on founders, explorers, and elements of harmony. She bore a practically giddy expression as the realization they were so close, shared by the entire group. That look fled as the lights flickered and a series of faint popping noises echoed through the museum. A second later, all the lights simply died. From up ahead, there was a shrill, metallic screeching, followed closely by a thunderous crash, like an entire kitchen full of pots and pans hitting the door at once. What's happening? Trixie demanded. What was that? A few rapid breaths were audible for the curator's precision, as before she managed to reply. That, she explained, would be the security door. Security door? Twilight replied, perplexed. What kind of door makes that noise? The kind that's a massive sheet of metal designed to drop into their place when the power goes out, Daring clarified. There's some sensitive stuff in that wing, and the door is to make sure nothing gets stolen or broken while we're all in the dark. I see. So, how do you open it? By turning the power back on. We need to get to the maintenance office. Can you get me a light? Obligingly, Twilight lit up her horn, bathing the six in violet illumination. With that, Daring Do set off, back toward the entrance, the rest following her.
We were so close.
Servant found, not for the first time since this mess started, that she was unconsciously holding her breath. She may have been panicking, a little internally, perfectly understandable, since there seemed to be a trap around every corner.
No, better not think about traps. They'll only make it worse. Let the experts handle the traps. Think about the way things were before tonight. The way things should be. The future.
She had been planning to take a vacation with a few friends soon, someplace warmer than New York, just for a few days. Now, she decided, if they won, she asked Twilight and the others to come along. They were certainly more pleasant company than her usual social circles, but that would have to be postponed. Nightmare Moon had interrupted a beautiful celebration with a beautiful banquet, so the first order of business would be to arrange another, grander, to replace what was lost. She was already envisioning the scene. Upon a mosaic of trays and tables would be an elegant arrangement of orange salads, orange crepes, orange tarts, orange marmalades, orange puddings, and of course, her specialty, orange sherbets. She would gather all of Manehattan, and they would feast until every pony agreed that the celebration had been perfect, as though this night had never happened. A click brought her back to reality. Daring Do had opened the door and beckoned them down a narrow, darkened corridor.
Oh yes, Save the world first. Then we can plan the feast.
The world above. Orange Sherbet thought of her family. Of her husband, her sister, her niece. Apples and oranges. The rest of the city, cowering from the memory of the dark mare. The rest of the world, wondering why the sun hadn't risen yet. Perhaps really beginning to fear the reason now. She imagined how they would all react. When at last this oppressive night rolled away and gentle dawn replaced it. Would they cheer? Dance for joy? Fall on their faces and thank Celestia? Or perhaps they all just give a sigh of relief and go on with their lives. Sherbet wouldn't blame them for that. They had stopped moving. Daring opened the panel, peering in with the light from Twilight's horn. Her hoof hovered over something within the panel, and then began moving rapidly along the rest of the space. Even from behind, that hoof gave a pretty clear image of the motion of her eyes, scanning, searching, pleading desperately to show her what she wanted to see. The others could hear a hiss. It was a strange, frightening sound coming from Daring-Do herself, as he flipped open another panel, then another. No, no, not this one too! She growled. She rolled around, suddenly, and darted past her friends, snatching a box from the shelf and tearing it open. It was empty. She gave a strangled cry of frustration and slumped over. There was a general hesitation following her outburst.
What is it?
Blassenforth asked cautiously, raising a hoof. The fuses, muttered the defeated curator. They're all blown. Every last one. Sherbet approached the first fuse box and examined it closely.
So, what about the spares? Trixie asked. Surely you keep spares around.
We keep one box in the maintenance office, and it's fresh out. The rest are all in storage. Sherbet found a spot, slot marked Early Equestrian Relics.
Storage where?
She asked, glancing back over her shoulder. Daring-Do simply pointed straight up. It took the others to register her meaning. Even if they could get out onto the second floor and back in again, they'd find digging through the rubble would be shards of glass and pulverized metal. Sarah's hoof slowly raised to her mane, and she turned back to the fuse box, fidgeting nervously.
There has to be more,
Blassenforth was saying.
We can search for...
Blossom, I know you don't want to give up, Daring interrupted, and I don't either. But if there were more, they'd be right here! A sound of cardboard sliding across a hard surface, indicating Daring had kicked the box for emphasis. Slowly, Sherbet lowered her hoof. It was curled around a small object. Her mane now fell in loose strands across her face.
Then we'll find some other way in,
Blassenforth responded.
I'm sure we can.
In one quick, smooth motion, Sherbet raised her hoof and slammed her jewel-encrusted golden hairpin into the fuse slot, withdrawing her hoof quickly, devoid of subsequent electrocution. There was a sizzle, and a pop! The flying sparks illuminated the room. Far away, a groaning sound echoed, as if something huge was being lifted by some tremendous force. In an instant, Daring-Do was airborne. What? How? She said, then laughed. Yes! We're back in business! As soon as that was out of her mouth, she zipped out of the room. Behind her, Trixie, Octavia, and Blassenforth exchanged a grin, then hurried after her. Sherbet remained staring at the fuse box, still processing what had just happened. Twilight trotted up to her.
Are you okay, Haunty?
She asked. Sherbet drew in a sharp breath, tearing her away from the lost jewelry, hesitating a second before entering.
That hairpin,
she explained in a sober tone,
was the first gift my husband ever gave to me. It wasn't a wedding gift, or an anniversary gift, or to celebrate this or that holiday. It was this, a gift. Something amazingly wonderful he gave me because he could. Barely at that. Back then he was a grocer. It was a 6 months' pay for him, and then some.
She shook her head sadly.
I've not parted with it since then. Not till now.
Twilight only nodded her understanding. There was nothing else she could say. Nothing any pony could say. A moment of silence passed between them. Then, Sherbet straightened her posture, brushed her mane out of her face, and turned.
I'll have time to dwell on that later,
she said, gently, with some semblance of composure restored. Let's hurry. After all this, I don't want to miss the conclusion. As they darted out of the room, Twilight offered her a smile. It was a small, sad, but sincere and helpful. Without missing a beat, Auntie returned it in kind.